All right,
And we are recording.
we are live on Las Vegas Tri Club Facebook page, and we're recording. I'm John Mercer, president of Las Vegas Triathlon Club. I've got co-host Bob Gamble. Hey, Bob, how's it
Hey,
going?
folks. Hey, doing wonderful. Thank
Thursday,
you.
time to do a member spotlight, and this is going to be a lot of fun to talk with Candace McCutcheon. This is, did I do that okay?
You did it. Perfect.
All right. Candace and I actually did Mont Tremblant the same year. We figured it was 2019, and that was such a fun race. But I am really going to be excited to hear more about her 70.3 experience up at St. George. If folks, if you're watching this and you have not read her race report, you got to read her race report. I literally almost cried probably 2 or 3 times during the reading that. So it's going to be a lot of fun to unpack that and talk about it. So, but I'm going to go ahead and let Bob do the official kickoff, and we'll get started.
Well, hello, folks, and yes, we have Candace McCutcheon, I believe is the right way to say it. We got to train John here, and we're happy to have Candace here because Candace has got quite a story. She's been doing triathlons for 5 years and has packed a whole lot into those 5 years, doing everything from sprints to Ironman. As a matter of fact, as John mentioned, she met John and Candace met at Mont Tremblant at the Ironman, and you have done a boatload of Olympics. You've done sprints. You've done a bunch of 70.3s. And it's like, I don't know how you pack that in because we've only been going for 4 years, including the pandemic. Yeah. And not only that, Candace packs into all of her training schedule a 6-year-old and a 13-year-old and a brand new puppy and a very supportive husband, apparently. Yeah. So yeah, it's fun to have here. And this year you have done the sprint, the club sprint. You did that, and you did St. George. We're going to talk about St. George. So, well, to get started, how are you? How you doing? Are you tired? You've been doing so much.
I am good. I am just about ready to get back into training after St. George. I took a recovery week, so I am tired, but it's like that good tired where I'm ready to get it moving again. So I'm good.
Very good. Very good. So what is next for you? Do you have anything planned up here? And
yeah, I have a couple of Olympics this summer. And the club races. I think I'm ready for just about all of the ones we have planned, and that'll probably be upcoming. And then I have the Boulder half Ironman in August, and then Pumpkin Man in October. And every time I do a race, I end up signing up for another one. So that's how I'd like to end my year.
That's how it goes.
So we'll see how that goes.
Well, very good. That's fun. It sounds like you're keeping a super busy schedule, and I notice your apple tree doesn't have any apples on it. Tell us about your puppy.
So I have a Irish Doodle. He is the best. We got him actually somehow during the Mont Tremblant Ironman. I somehow made a promise to my kids that I was not aware of that we would get a dog after the Ironman.
Oh, they reminded you and you didn't even know anything about it. Mom, you promised us a dog. Oh, I did?
Yeah, they said, we were so good for your year of training. You said we could get a dog. And that was not how the conversation went, but they had it in their head. So we got this puppy. And he's been great. He's actually been my training dog. We got a dog that could run with me. So he's trained for his 70.3. He didn't bike with me, but he would go to the lake with me. He would run the half marathons with me. So he's been great so far.
Wow.
He just likes to eat the apples.
That's fun. Now, John, how do you want to get started here? I know we really want to talk about Candace's 70.3 up at St. George, but I'm not sure we want to jump right into that first.
Yeah, that's good. Let's get let's talk about your first race. What got you into?
I was going to say, start about that sprint.
Yeah.
So I am a kickboxer. I own a kickboxing gym. So that's what I do for a profession. And it actually started with a member. So I would always do events, but they were always like Tough Mudders or Spartan, anything that involved a team. and I would never do anything without my friends. And so I'd always wanted to do a triathlon, but none of my friends ever wanted to. And so I never did. And a lady walked in, and she was probably about 60 years old. And it was her first time kickboxing ever. And I had asked her, like, do you work out now? What do you do? And she was like, yeah, I do triathlons. And I was like, I've always wanted to do one. And she looked at me and she said, well, what? Yeah. She said, well, why haven't you? And I said, well, none of my friends want to. And this woman looked right at me and said, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I just stopped for a minute and I just looked at her and I said, yeah,
You're right.
you were right. And then I went home that day and signed up for my first sprint, which was Rage.
Yeah.
And it was awful.
Oh.
Of course, it has to be. That's where your memories, that's where your good memories come from.
But I loved it. Like I'd never done anything by myself. And I just feel like when I did my first triathlon, it was the first thing that it was all on me. It's like everybody's nice on the race course, but there's not really a team. It's not really a team sport, if that makes sense. It's like you versus you.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never been challenged like that, where it was just my mindset. I mean, I'm sure you guys know there are times you want to get off the bike and there's nobody behind you on your bike saying, you got this, keep going. You've got to convince yourself. So it was the first time I'd ever challenged myself mentally. I did it on a mountain bike. I Googled how to train for a triathlon. I was so green. I Googled it. I did it on a mountain bike. I'd never done a lake swim before. I showed up on, which I don't recommend. So if you're watching this and you're new, do not do that.
You hadn't been in open water and you did a triathlon. Oh gosh.
And it was the year that Rage was like insanely windy. So there was white caps on the water, and it was just like I remember being in the water. I'm like, this is how it ends. This is how I go.
I'm checking out. This is how it goes.
I'm done. And then at the end of that, so I also have had some issues with my legs and some veins. I had a clotting disorder. And so doctors had always told me, like, you could never do that. I had asked first, like, can I do this event? And they would say, no, you can't do that. So naturally I tried. I got through the sprint and I was like, I did that. I could do another one. So I did one sprint and then I went to the Olympic. I did Pumpkin Man as my second and my first Olympic and my second race. I did that on a new bike, but I wasn't experienced. So my gears got stuck. So I did the whole Pumpkin Man in the hardest gear. That's a whole long story. I mean,
you did that climb in a high gear?
In the highest gear. I had
the highest gear,
like the hardest gear.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I don't see how you can do that.
I didn't. So I didn't do very well. I got to the very top and the van came and they took my timing chip.
Oh no.
And they were like, you didn't make it in time. I had to stop at the ambulance because my back was seizing up because my legs were so exhausted from the big gear. And I was right there. And to top it all off, this was only my second triathlon. My husband was new to the racing, being a Sherpa. And I get to the top and he's like, what's taking you so long? I've been waiting forever. And I'm like, what is happening to me right now? So I get to the end. I'm looking at the run tunnel and I have no chip now. And I'm like, just go ask him if I can finish. Like, I promise I won't hold anyone up. I'll get this done. Long story short, I just took off. I borrowed my bike and I took off. And I came in second to last, not in my age group. Like, out of the thousands of 2,000 people, I was second to last. And that was my first Olympic. And I left my husband afterwards. I was like, the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I didn't want to quit because I couldn't tell, even though I had DNF'd and they took my chip, I couldn't tell my kids I didn't finish. So I finished and I told my husband at the end, I'm like, he's like, we need to go get your bike. I'm like, leave it there. I'm never going to ride it again. Leave it there. Someone can have it. I'm never doing a triathlon again. And then 3 days later, I signed up for a half Ironman, and I said, if I'm going to do this, I need a coach because I don't know what I'm doing on the bike. So I got a coach, and then the rest is just, I've just become addicted. I love them.
Well, I am so glad that we have these spotlights because I didn't know any of this.
People are hearing this and they are getting some good information. I mean, you learn from mistakes, and the bigger the mistake, the bigger the lesson, and you learn some good ones.
I did. And my husband did too. He knows now to never ask, what is taking you so long? I've been waiting forever. Like, he knows never ask that.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, there's a lot of gems in there that you just talked about. I mean, the mental fortitude that you're displaying from rage, not, that's a whole new experience. Doing that on a mountain bike, which is, again, great for people to hear. That first one, just borrow, use whatever you have just to get that race in and get that experience. But then to turn around and sign up for Pumpkin Man, which, as you know, a lot of our listeners will know, is that's an immensely hard race.
Yeah.
The hardest sprint ever. And to do that on a bike that you're in a high gear, my goodness. And then you still did the run. So then you turn around and sign up for a half Ironman.
Half Ironman.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That is.
But I did know going into it, like, if I was going to complete it, I had to get help. There was no way I was going to finish that without help.
So what was your first half Ironman then?
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa. Okay.
Yeah. Santa Rosa was my first. And it was probably the best first experience you could ever have. It was insane. Like, if anyone's ever raced that venue, it was incredible.
So how was it? So it was just the course itself? Was it the environment? Was it the people? Or
it was all of it. It was the course was really pretty. We were going through vineyards and farmland, and like they had this train tunnel we went through, and it was just the bike was perfect. And then the run, you follow this river, and like there's like a bank that goes up, so you're running under all these canopies of trees, and there's people sitting next to the river, and they're playing like the banjo, and there's reggae music, and like the whole town just stops. And it was such an amazing, I absolutely love that. I have yet to find one with that big of a community support. I mean, there's been some really good ones, but nothing tops Santa Rosa. That's how I ended up at St. George, was because in 2020 I had signed up for Santa Rosa again. It was the last Santa Rosa, and then when COVID hit, they permanently canceled Santa Rosa, so I deferred to St. George, and that's how I ended up at St. George.
Oh wow, that's great. And so now at least you're on a trajectory where the experience is now becoming more positive. And somewhere in there, you mixed in Ironman Mount Tremblant.
Yeah.
Which was a fabulous experience, and you did so well there.
Wow.
Yeah. Each one of my races have been really unique. I seem to always run into these funny, awkward situations, like the gear not working or the water being crazy. After Santa Rosa, I did Oceanside in preparation for Mont Tremblant. Okay. And I've never done an ocean swim, and I'm terrified of sharks and dolphins and any sea creature I'm not a fan of. So I was having anxiety, but I had told my coach, like, I'm not getting in the water ahead of time. I don't know what to tell you. There's not going to be any beach trips. We're not going to practice beach swimming. I will get in there when I get there. I'm not risking anything about any type of sea animal. Yeah. So the day before, I was really having a hard time with it. And he was like, you have to get in the water. You have to. I need to get rid of this anxiety. You have race day tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Long story short, we're swimming out there. I'm like, I'm done. Chip, I just don't want to swim. I get it. I know how to handle the waves now. And I was really glad he did this. He always prepares me so well. He's like, one more wave. I'm like, no more waves. Like, I'm good. He's like, one more. We go under this wave, and I come up, and there's this giant fin in front of me.
No.
I immediately start crying. I'm like, what do I do? And he's like, we need to get out of the water. We didn't know what it was. It was probably a good 20 feet in front of me. It was this big, ugly white fin with a chunk. I will never forget it. A chunk of sound. I'm swimming. I'm crying. I'm trying to get out. It was just, and that happened the day before race day. Everyone thought I wasn't going to be able to complete Oceanside. It emotionally scarred me. And I'll never forget. I was like, again, my kids are here. How do I not even attempt? Mm-hmm. So I'm standing at the start line of Oceanside, and that same day, the wind was crazy. So the waves are supposed to be 4 feet, and they're capping at 10. All the people swimming are being washed back into shore. And I'm standing there and tears are running down my eyes as they're making people go. And I'm like, you're going to be fine. There's not going to be any sharks. There's 1,000 people in here. But all these funny things keep happening. And I just keep going.
Seems like life is toughening you up. Life is toughening you up. I mean, because I have never seen a shark in the water when I was swimming. I've seen turtles, and that's it.
It was insane. I think the percentage of people actually seeing animal life like that is 1%. And it was the first time I got in the ocean, and I'm like, never again.
Oh. Well,
that's crazy.
What I'm hearing again, this mental fortitude that you have.
Yeah, you got that right.
Amazing. And you're drawing your inspiration. It sounds like a lot from your family, and your friends as well. And so that's really neat to hear. But now you're moving towards St. George.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we didn't race at all in 2020. And so let me actually go back, because you said it was really important to get a coach and get some help. Where did you think you needed help on? What part were you saying, I need to get help with this?
The bike. So I swam in high school.
Okay.
I was never a fast swimmer, but at least I could swim. I knew how to swim. So I was okay with that. And running, I've never struggled with running, but biking was new to me. I mean, I've never rode my bike ever. So it was very new to me. I had a mountain bike and I hopped on that. I didn't know how to change gears. I knew nothing about gear. And because I had lost my chip at Pumpkin Man with a quarter of a mile to go, I was like, never again will that happen to me. So I needed help with the biking. And what was crazy, it was I just couldn't get fast enough. And the harder I worked, the slower I got. And so when I got a coach, I think one of the best lessons he's really helped me with is being faster and getting better at something doesn't mean you sprint all the time. The slower you go, the faster you get over time. So that was a huge lesson in everything, in my swimming and my running and my biking. But I needed help in the biking world more than I was very green. It would be like going to the store, picking out a bike, and that's the extent of my knowledge.
Well, that's great. I think that's so important for people to hear, is that, when you go looking for a coach, it's really great if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And that helps you match up really well with that coach's skill set and what you need. So that's really neat to hear. So that's great. All right. So now let's get.
And it's also great to hear that someone has made you realize you go slow a little bit in your training to go fast in the long run.
Yeah.
And when you're racing.
Yeah.
You can't go hard. Yeah. So that's cool. So go ahead, John.
All right.
We're getting into the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, this whole thing, this is all great. I love it. St. George. Tell us about St. George 70.3 with 3,000 other friends of yours.
Yeah. So are you wanting to know about the race or the prep before the race?
Oh, I think we got to do a little bit of the prep, because you weren't even sure you were going to race.
Correct. So I had everything got canceled in 2020. I also had shoulder surgery that was scheduled for the week after Santa Rosa. So I injured myself it came about in it didn't come about in Mont Tremblant, but I got through it with Mount Tremblant. Then I knew I had Santa Rosa, so I had talked to my coach. What should I do? How should I plan this? We decided there was no way I could do surgery and be ready for Santa Rosa. The surgeon agreed, do Santa Rosa, then the week after we have surgery. So when Santa Rosa got canceled, I moved my shoulder surgery up.
Okay.
So I had surgery in 2020, which I thought would be like a week and a half, 2-week recovery.
Oh, shoulders, huh? Week and a half
That
recovery.
was not the case. And so I had signed up for other races and they just kept getting canceled. And I really struggled during COVID. It took me mentally. The training is what keeps me sane. I have a very busy life. I own a gym. In the middle of a pandemic, it shut down. I had 250 members that needed to be taken care of. I moved everything online, started doing all this stuff at home. I had no outlet. The training has always been my outlet, plus the kids, plus the shoulder surgery. So I had a really hard time getting myself to train when things kept, I'd be like, okay, I'm so excited. I'm going to train. This race is going to happen. And then you guys know it'd be pushed.
Yep.
So I had signed up for a few and then they just kept getting pushed. And so I'd still keep riding, but it was harder to push myself every time because it's like, who knows if this is going to happen or not.
The disappointment hits you so many times, it's hard to keep your energy up.
It does. So it was like, I just kind of kept going and my coach was constantly trying to help me with the mental aspect. Like, we're going to be okay. You're going to do this. You're going to do great. So, and then I really struggled with my shoulder recovery, really bad. So it wasn't until I want to say the month before St. George, I had a team of people. I had my coach, and then I was working with Ron from Maximum Velocity because the surgeon wanted to do more surgery and I came out of surgery worse than when I went in. So I couldn't move my arm past my hip. And I was like, what is happening? This wasn't a problem before. And it was just really hard. So it wasn't until a month before St. George that I was able to swim 1900. And the goal for my coach and my PT was, we just have to get her so that she can keep performing and she can get to this race without pain. But we can't push it too fast because so it was really hard on me mentally. There were days where I was upset. There were days where I had mental breakdowns. There were days in the pool and I'm like, I know I should be swimming 1200 right now and I'm only up to 500. Like, how is this? And I just trusted the process. I trusted the team of people that were helping me get there. And
you know, I think that this is so great for people to hear because on one hand, we are moving toward regular racing, but on the other hand, 2020 was a hard year for a lot of different reasons, and it's really great for people to hear the challenges that you were faced with, but you have overcome them, and I think it's important that people need to know that not everybody was able to train successfully over 2020. And so there may be a little bit of fear going into that first race.
It was crazy at St. George. And I think that's why, so I've never really got emotional at the end of a race. And when I crossed the finish line at St. George, I just had waterworks. And I thought something was broken. I'm like, you never cry. Even my husband was like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just having a moment. But the feeling when we were there was crazy. Everybody was going through the same anxiety that I was going through. And I didn't realize everyone else felt the same way. It was everyone's first race back. Everyone was like, did I put my food in my bag? Do I have my shoes? Is my wetsuit on correctly? Can I get my wetsuit on? Like, everyone was going through similar things where it was almost like there was a sea and it was everyone's first race all over again. And that was something really special to see. It wasn't just about the race itself. it was the fact that all of us were there and it was actually happening and we all made it. Like we
What
all made it.
what an amazing, opportunity to have all that, everybody together in the same space, the
Yeah,
same place,
it was
I
crazy.
envy you. It's like, I wish I've done that now. I would have forced myself to do that. But because
It was
mine's
crazy.
coming up, it's like I'm going to have to do that first race again.
Yeah.
Oh,
But you
that's
know
cool.
what?
So you got through it though. Good grief.
Yeah. And have comfort in knowing that this whole probably next year, it's going to be a lot of people's first race again. So you're not alone. And there's something comforting in knowing that.
Mhm.
Wow.
Oh, that's good.
That's an amazing story too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
And your swim, how did your swim go with your shoulder?
So my shoulder did great. The problem is that because I let my injury go for so long, which I don't recommend to people. I have this mental thing where I just keep pushing. And it's not always good. So I should have handled my injury much sooner and I didn't. And because of that, my shoulder caused issues in my hips and in other things. So we're still working through all of it. And
Compensated.
my swim was so physically, my body did what it was supposed to do. I could not complain about my shoulder. Right when I entered the water, I pulled my groin and my quad. And I felt so
Oh
ridiculous.
my goodness.
I had told my coach, like, who does that? You don't even use that. Why am I even using that muscle? How is that even feasible?
Tense. You're tense.
So I pulled it within the first probably minute of the swim. And I'm getting through the swim. I'm feeling good. The anxiety was really high at the start because, like I said, so many people is the first time back. So you're like, am I going to be okay? Am I going to make it? Do I have everything? So I get through probably the first 200, and the fumes and the amount of people that were swimming was something I've never experienced. You expect to be punched, you expect to be like bumped, but it was just like a free for all on this one. I got punched twice, kicked in the head twice someone had swam over me. They had pushed me down, swam over me. And I'm lucky because my coach will, like, jokingly, when we go out to open water to practice, he'll like shove me or elbow me and I'll be like, what are you doing? And he's like, it's gonna happen. How are you gonna handle it? I'm like, so I've had lots of practice keeping my cool. But the other aspect of it was the fumes.
yeah.
I've never had it that bad. I mean, something had to have spilled. The gas tank had to have spilled. It was so strong. It was giving me a headache and I couldn't breathe. So twice and I've never quit anything. Twice I decided in my swim, like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I've been kicked. I've been pushed. This is not going well. I really felt like I was going to drown. I couldn't breathe at all. And I had made the decision that I was going to quit. And I was like, I'm okay I had stopped for a minute and I was pedaling, trying to like catch my breath. And I had made the decision that I was okay with this. Like, I will be okay telling my children, because at this point I didn't feel like I was going to survive the swim. I was just so high anxious. My heart rate was on fire. I was getting pushed. I couldn't breathe. I really felt like I was going to drown. So I was like, I'm done. There was a kayak and I started to make my way over. And the other half of this is not just my kids. I have a gym and all of my members knew I was doing this race. And I was so afraid of letting them down. They had been telling me all week, like sending me messages on Messenger. Good luck, Candace. We're so excited for you. Make the gym proud. So I had okayed in my head telling my kids I would quit. And I was swimming to the kayak. And then I'm like, I can't tell my member, I can't go back and be the leader of this studio and not complete it. So I was like, just swim 100 yards. So I was like, just one stroke at a time. So I swam, couldn't breathe again. I stopped. I decided, you know what? Nope, this is not worth it. I'm going to quit. Obviously I didn't. I made it through. And the other sign was I was laughing at myself in a nervous way because it was also the first time I'd pushed my shoulder to that amount straight. I got up to 1900, but I had also taken a few breaks. So I just was afraid of my shoulder. And then my groin pulled. And when I got to before I got to the halfway buoy, my watch clicked that I had hit 1,000 yards. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even swimming straight. So you're not even halfway. You've done 1,000. Your shoulder's not prepared for a 2,000 swim. And then there was one point where I had run into something. I had hit my head on something and I popped my head up and I was like really going to yell at someone like, what are you doing? And I pop up and it's the buoy.
Oh,
I ran into the buoy. So I was like, I had to stop and tell myself like, Candace, what are you doing? Like, calm down, breathe. You're okay. You were trained for this. Your shoulder will do it. The last 200, my quad was so tight that I stopped kicking altogether. And then the last 200, I started using my arms. I ended up swimming 200 more and I pride myself on swimming straight. But that was because I swam 200 more yards and I couldn't use my legs at the end. It did stress out my shoulder a little bit. That was a really long explanation. Sorry.
You are so tenacious. Good grief, to stick with it through all that. That is so incredibly impressive.
well,
That was the craziest. That was the first and only time I've ever decided to quit. And I'm glad I didn't.
well, it just is really, I like the tenacious phrase. I mean, it is amazing that, I'm sitting here looking at you smile and talk about this, with, endearment. It just is really, now I know why you sign up for these things. I mean, you really enjoy overcoming
do.
the challenges. And when
Yeah.
you do knock them down, it makes you that much stronger. It's really, really impressive. And so you went on and had a great bike ride.
I did.
I'm gonna watch our time because I want to.
No.
There, I know this is crazy. And then you had a sub 2 hour run, which was amazing. And
Yeah.
you ended up
With a bad quad and a pulled groin. Good grief.
Yes, I did.
and then
So
in under 6 hours. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you're right. I was really, so my coach had given me like my best case time scenario. And he does this all the time. And he's always within 3 minutes. Like, I don't know how Chip does it, but he's never wrong. And he always gives me these times and I'm like, I told him the whole week, I'm like, you're smoking something. There's no way I'm coming in at that time. Like, I'm busted. My shoulder is not where it needs to be, yada, yada. He did the same thing with Mont Tremblant. He came within 2 minutes of my actual time. So I decided after the swim, like, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to my time. And I was terrified of Snow Canyon and the bike. I didn't want to overexert. I wasn't terrified of it. I am a hill rider.
You were cautious.
So
Cautious of that hill.
I was terrified of the run. So I took I was cautious on the bike and I wasn't paying attention to my watch. And I think I thought I would be done with that bike around 3:15, 3:20. And I think I came in around like 3:02. So I was like, oh, wow, I'm doing really well. Yeah. So I start my run and I get to mile 6 and I'm like, well, he said if all the stars aligned and I had like a superhero kind of day, I would finish at 5:58, which would be really good for me for this course, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And then I start calculating at mile 6. I'm like, I wonder what my time is. And mile 6, I'm like, I'm going to be within seconds of this. So I stopped, like, I started paying attention. I'm like, you have a choice. You can, because I never walk anything. So I was walking the aid station. I was talking to people. I was just enjoying the race. I wasn't focused. And then when I realized I was going to be within seconds, I'm like, you are going to kick yourself in the head if you're out here picking daisies, talking to everyone, and you're like 5 seconds away from this best time. So I put my mind to it, my knee at that point, because my quad, it was pulling on my knee. So I was like, what do you do? And so I just sucked it up and I was like, let's go, it's go time. And I just finished the last couple of miles and actually pushed. So part of me is really excited because my bike was really I enjoyed it. I didn't feel like I died in my run for the most part. I enjoyed that too. So I think I could have probably pushed a little bit harder, but I had a great race.
No, that's great.
When I crossed the finish line, I had no clue what time I was on. So I crossed it and I hit stop and just tears.
Yeah.
and I still didn't know my time. And then when I had finished my workout and looked at it, I thought my watch glitched because I finished 5 minutes before that. And I was like, oh my God, my watch glitched. And I'd never cried, but the emotional stress of overcoming the shoulder and overcoming my gym not closing and overcoming training while the kids had virtual school, like, I just think the whole 2020 impacted me when I hit the finish line. And then on top of it, I hadn't seen any of my family. I was so focused on finishing. And I cross the finish line. I walk around. I'm trying not to cry because I don't like anyone to see me crying. I see my husband. I start crying again. That's me. He's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. So I finally stop crying. I walk over to finish and wait for Chip. And I see one of my members turn around. And I had no idea that a member had came. And then before I knew it, another member turned around. And there was 15 of my members who, and like, I still can't even talk about it without getting emotional, but like, who does that? I mean, they drove 2 hours to come and see me finish. I've
cool.
never gone and done that for my gym instructor. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it was just a very emotional
Well, good
day.
grief. You are obviously special to a lot of people.
And
You
it was
know,
even better because Lionel Sanders won, and he's like
There you
my
go.
favorite. So it was a great day.
Well,
go ahead, John.
no, I was gonna do some closing thoughts on this. Did you have something that?
I did. I just wanted to say one thing that you pointed out that you made apparent and just a fantastic lesson. The things that you overcome made the victory so much sweeter. And
Yes.
if you hadn't have had to overcome any of that, that's what's just so, I got goosebumps. I'm sorry. It's like you overcame so much in the swim and your shoulder and,
Yes.
you know, the bike and all this other stuff. And you don't get the kind of satisfaction from a finish unless you do that, have those kind of challenges. So it's like you thrive on challenges, and the harder it is, the better it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm
That's so cool.
glad. Like, could you imagine if I would have quit in the swim and all these people came? I had no idea they were there. Like, I would have never forgave myself for that. I would have been so mad.
It is an inspiration. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you shared that.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
it's great.
it's so great for people to hear this story from getting started to where you are now. And you know, one of the things you wrote in your race report, I wrote down, I really liked it. You wrote, I leaned on those around me who lifted me up when I couldn't lift myself up. And you know, I always say triathlon's an individual sport, but we don't do these alone. And I think you're a true testament of that. And maybe we need to give a shout out to a few people. You mentioned Ron with PT.
Him and so Chip was my coach.
Yeah.
He's been my coach for the last 4 years,
Yeah.
5 years. And Ron, this was the first time I'd ever worked with Ron, and the two of them together, they just did amazing things for me mentally, not only physically. Like, there were times when I would break down to Chip and I'm like, I can't take the mental pressure. It's too much. And he would get me through it. And then I go into Ron's and I'd be upset because the week before I could push press a certain weight and then my shoulder would just poop out the next week and I would not be able to understand. And those two kept lifting me up every time I doubted or felt like I couldn't do something. They were always there at the right time, and they helped me. They, like, not just physically but mentally, you know. It takes a team, and
No,
they were fantastic.
it takes a team, and I know you have some team at home, and
Yeah.
a wonderful husband who really supports you, and you've got a couple of good parents that support you too. So
Yes, my mom is the best.
And they're in the tri community as well, so it's so great.
Yes.
You know, this is so great to hear your story. Great to hear what you've overcome and just your infectious attitude about racing and really almost looking forward to the challenge and to want to overcome. So thank you for joining us tonight. This is
Yeah, thank you.
And it sounds like that, the bigger the errors and not errors, but the problems that you overcome, the better it is. So it's like, we're going to have to start, letting the air out of your tires or something like that, so you can have a good race,
Don't do that. Listen, don't, anyone who's out there, like, don't get me wrong. Okay. I have my moments, like in the swim or during, some of the bikes and during training, I'm like, why am I out here? Like, this is not, I'm never doing this again. So I am just like everybody else. I just think afterwards, it's just, there's something rewarding about going through these things and being able to tackle it. And it's like, it just makes you feel like, if I can do this, I can handle everything else.
Mhm.
So
No,
like there's a saying that says, a smooth sea doesn't make a good sailor. So it's like, it's rough for you and it's made you what you are. So that's awesome. So we're so wonderful having you on this interview. Yeah, that was fun.
great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Candace. Talk to you soon.